A refinery the size of a small city just turned into a volcano. The fire was visible from the Black Sea, and the Russian government looked the world straight in the eye and said it was just debris. Falling debris. That somehow ignited fuel tanks across an entire facility processing 12 million tons of oil per year, responsible for 10% of Russia's total petroleum exports. Debris did that. That lie tells you everything you need to know about where Russia stands right now. On the night of April 16, 2026, Ukraine didn't just launch a drone strike. Ukraine executed a coordinated assault against 16 military targets spanning Donetsk, Crimea, and Russian territory itself. Air defense systems collapsed, ammunition depots burned, the Black Sea Fleet lost its fuel supply and its weapons stockpile in a single night. And it was all done with medium-range drones that cost a fraction of the missiles they destroyed. 365 strikes in 365 days, Putin's approval rating falling for 6 straight weeks. His own supporters tell him his people are afraid of him. A former loyalist was sent to a psychiatric ward for calling him illegitimate. This is not a story about one night of strikes. This is the story of an empire beginning to crack, and the fractures are running in both directions at once. Architecture of destruction. What has Ukraine built in the last 12 months? Look past the dramatic headlines. The plumes of smoke rising deep within Russian territory reveal a strategic pattern that often goes unnoticed. A practical question arises. Why are these targets selected in such a specific sequence rather than at random? What we are seeing is not the result of luck. It is a systematically organized military structure. This is a smart operational process that Ukraine has quietly developed over the past 12 months. They are executing a pragmatic script. It is a methodical approach designed to dismantle the Russian defense system layer by layer with cold professional efficiency. The system operates on a calculated 3-tier logic. The primary goal is to paralyze the adversary's operational rear. The first move is the suppression of enemy air defenses SEAD. This is the top priority. Data reveals that out of 365 mid-range strikes between March 2025 and March 2026, the majority of the firepower focused on Russia's protective air grids. The logic is simple once early warning capabilities are degraded. The entire infrastructure behind them reveals significant vulnerabilities. This makes intercepting subsequent strikes much harder. Ukraine is turning high-value targets into exposed and defenseless weak points. With the defensive shield compromised, the pressure immediately shifts. The next target is neutralizing Russia's counterattack assets. Ukraine directs its firepower toward ammunition depots and specialized drone command centers like the Rubicon unit. In the Kremlin's tactical mindset, these facilities are the essential firepower bottlenecks. If air defense serves as the shield, then UAV units and ammo stockpiles are the Russian military's primary offensive tools. By damaging these units from the rear, Kiev makes it difficult for Moscow to deliver proportional responses. They are creating tactical disruptions across the entire near-rear area. Next, Ukraine's script targets the fuel lines. This is the lifeblood of the entire logistical system. Oil refineries and fuel depots are not just economic assets, they are the decisive factors in maintaining the rhythm of war. A military force lacking fuel faces major obstacles. Movement stops, resupply fails. When facilities in Tuapse or Crimea are struck, the operational tempo of the Russian campaign shows visible signs of slowing down. Ukraine is focusing on severing this artery. The end goal is to ensure that combat vehicles at the front lose their ability to maintain constant pressure. The events of April 16th offer a textbook example of this process. The raid did not begin by hitting oil depots at random. It started by targeting the Osay-Ake system at Vodiane and the Panzer S-1 at Feodosia. Only after these defensive layers were weakened did subsequent drone waves reach and destroy the Hlyboki Yar and Oktyabrsk oil depots. This level of coordination demonstrates a mastery of the mid-range battle space. Ukraine is effectively controlling the area from 20 to 300 kilometers. This is the very zone Russia once regarded as an absolutely safe sanctuary for its critical military assets. Maintaining a steady rhythm of 1 precision strike per day for an entire year is an industrial-scale feat. This figure proves that Ukraine's drone production has reached significant volume. Rather than relying on expensive cruise missiles, Kyiv utilizes swarms of low-cost drones with relatively high accuracy. The efficiency of this approach challenges traditional defense doctrines. A cheap flight system can now cause substantial damage to protective hardware worth tens of millions of dollars. This is a revolution in the economics of modern warfare where mass-produced technology overcomes legacy defense systems. Kyiv is doing more than just building an arsenal. They are creating a new framework for modern warfare. They are providing a real-world model for how a nation with fewer resources can apply pressure on a superpower's logistics through data and persistence. Every explosion in the Russian rear is an indicator. It shows the architecture is operating according to plan. Russia's difficulties at the front may not only be due to a lack of personnel. The root cause is likely that the system nourishing that army is being systematically dismantled from behind piece by piece. Beyond the thick plumes of smoke rising from the Russian rear, a different kind of damage is settling, one that is invisible yet far more corrosive: the disintegration of unspoken certainties. As targets 300 kilometers deep are neutralized with surgical frequency, it isn't just oil and hardware that vanish. It is the elite's fundamental belief in their own sanctuary. There is a cold reality that no amount of propaganda can mask when geographic distance is no longer a shield. The survival calculus of those holding the levers of power begins to shift in dangerous directions. Yet the drone strikes are merely the visible tip of a much deeper crisis. The true threat to Moscow today isn't just what is burning on the horizon. It is a silent pressure building behind the Kremlin's most fortified walls. Fractures are forming in places where surveillance cameras and censorship algorithms cannot reach. A breaking point is emerging not on a tactical map, but within the very foundation of the regime itself. The real question is no longer where Ukraine will strike next, but what happens when the price of loyalty finally exceeds the means to pay for it. The growing silence in the corridors of power may be far more ominous than the explosions occurring hundreds of miles away, a losing investment when loyalty to the Kremlin begins to waver. History rarely marks the fall of a regime by the thunder of guns at the border. Instead, it usually begins with a chilling silence within the corridors of power. There is a cold, pragmatic reality: a dictatorship doesn't perish because its enemies are too strong. It fails when the cost of loyalty exceeds the cost of betrayal. For the Kremlin, in April 2026, the math is no longer adding up. The unspoken contract between Putin and his elite stability in exchange for obedience is under immense pressure as Ukrainian drones consistently pierce the safety of the Russian heartland. This fracture did not begin with street protests, but within the core operational channels of the economy itself. In a bid to plug security leaks, the Kremlin tightened its grip on Telegram and digital infrastructure. It was a fundamental administrative blunder. In Russia, Telegram is a critical backbone for business and logistics. By strangling this tool, the state inadvertently paralyzed its own financial and supply chain coordination. The Russian business elite, long loyal in exchange for profit, now realize that Putin's system has become the single greatest barrier to their own survival. The pressure quickly bled into the middle class through voices the Kremlin cannot easily silence. Victoria Bonya, with 13 million followers, is the prime example. When an influencer who personifies the elite lifestyle publicly declares that the people are afraid of you, it isn't a political manifesto, it's a confirmation that fear has finally overtaken faith. The fact that these videos garner millions of likes proves that discontent has breached the walls of state media. When those who once preferred to remain apolitical begin to feel unsafe, Putin's carefully crafted illusion of national stability begins to fracture. Even more alarming for Putin is the simmering resistance from within the ranks of his former defenders. As traditional legal tools lose their efficacy, the Kremlin has regressed to punitive psychiatry, a Soviet-era relic to silence activists who were once part of the inner circle. Forcing sane individuals into mental hospitals is not a display of power. It is a sign of administrative terminal failure. It proves Putin has run out of ways to persuade his elite and has resorted to crude, desperate violence. In a modern system, extreme fear is usually the precursor to the elite calculating their exit strategies. Poll data from Russia's own state agencies Visium is now reflecting an undeniable reality. Putin's approval ratings have declined steadily for 6 weeks, a rare occurrence since the invasion began. While 71% might still seem high in an environment of absolute censorship, a 5% drop carries the weight of a significant crisis of confidence. The reality on the ground is undoubtedly grimmer than the sanitized reports landing on Putin's desk. Every plume of smoke rising from a refinery in the rear is a knife severing the remaining bond between the dictator and the people who hold up his throne. What happens when the physical pressure of drone strikes and the psychological pressure of social discontent converge? It creates a self-consuming spiral. The deeper Ukraine strikes, the harder Putin must tighten internal control. The tighter the control, the more he drives the business sector and the elite into covert opposition. This is no longer just a war of attrition over ammunition, but a war of attrition over loyalty. The Kremlin is effectively weakening itself as the very resources meant to protect the regime turn into the catalysts for internal instability. Ukraine does not need to march on Moscow to break this system. They only need to sustain the pressure long enough for the Russian elite to realize one thing: loyalty to Putin is now a losing investment. When the people who hold the empire's economic lifeline start searching for a way out, the collapse will unfold in a way that no army can stop in time. An empire can survive a lack of weapons, but it faces the risk of disintegration once the foundation of trust is dismantled. Putin's war is no longer just in Ukraine, it is being fought in every closed boardroom inside the Kremlin. The ripple effect. Why oil plant fires in Russia impact your wallet. When the Tuapse oil refinery ignited, it wasn't just a logistical headache for the Russian military. This facility processes 12 million tons of crude annually, accounting for 10% of Russia's total petroleum exports. The black smoke rising over the Black Sea serves as a red signal sent directly to global energy markets. For a nation reliant on energy exports, losing a strategic link like Tuapse is a direct hit to the Kremlin's war chest. However, this event carries much more practical significance for your own wallet back in the United States. The global oil market functions like a series of connected vessels. When supply from one of the world's largest exporters is disrupted, the pressure is immediately reflected in the price charts. Currently, Russia is struggling to safely export oil from both the Baltic and Black Sea regions simultaneously. This is a supply shock that the market can hardly ignore. From trading floors in London to gas pumps in Texas or Michigan, every explosion in the Russian rear has the potential to make fuel prices in the US fluctuate. This is why this conflict has never been a distant story. Beyond energy, the rise of Ukrainian mid-range drones is changing how the Pentagon views national defense. Consider the simple economic math: a low-cost flight device worth a few $1,000s can neutralize a Russian air defense system worth tens of millions. If these low-cost drones can dismantle the protective layers of a major power, then military doctrines based on massive, expensive hardware need to be reassessed. This is a challenge for old-school defense contractors, but an opportunity for American AI and tech firms. It's a shift toward a more pragmatic, data-driven style of warfare. This reality is impacting investment flows in the US. Investors are shifting their focus towards software solutions, artificial intelligence, and autonomous systems rather than just traditional heavy weapon projects. Ukraine is currently the world's largest real-world laboratory, where algorithms are starting to replace the brute force of steel. Lessons from the field suggest that future military superiority won't necessarily belong to those with more tanks, but to those with more flexible and cost-effective technological solutions. This trend is already reshaping the DNA of the modern defense industry. The geopolitical significance of this breakpoint is also clear for the order the US maintains. If Ukraine proves that a smaller nation can break the logistical capacity of a nuclear superpower through technology, it sends a powerful deterrent message to other sensitive regions like Taiwan or the Baltics. It demonstrates that sheer scale is no longer the sole guarantor of victory. Ukrainian adaptation is a case study that U.S. allies are now analyzing to defend themselves against larger adversaries without the need for direct, massive confrontation. It changes the risk-reward calculation for any future aggressor. Looking at the broader picture, Russia is dealing with pressure from two sides simultaneously. At the front, they are faltering due to fuel shortages and dismantled logistics. Domestically, the frustration within the business community and the public is growing with every explosion. It's hard for Putin to convince his people that everything is under control when national energy and digital infrastructures are compromised. The combination of external military pressure and internal fracturing is pushing the Kremlin system toward a dangerous threshold. The cracks in the regime are becoming harder to patch with simple propaganda. Ukraine is not just trying to survive, they are changing the rules of modern warfare. With 365 mid-range strikes in a single year, they have constructed a corridor of firepower that Russia has yet to effectively answer. Meanwhile, Russia's rigid administrative system appears to be strangling itself. A weakened Russia not only provides an advantage to Kiev, but also directly reduces the security burden for the US. A Moscow forced to focus on internal crises is far less capable of causing disruptions in other strategic regions across the globe. Ultimately, this story matters to you because it proves that technology and will can alter the course of events in the most pragmatic way. Russia is bleeding on the battlefield and fracturing from within. Every explosion in Tuapse or Crimea is not just a destroyed military target, it is a setback for a system clinging to obsolete doctrines. The outcome of this collision will reshape gas prices, investment portfolios, and our collective safety in the coming months, rather than in some distant future. This war is not over, but its geography has changed at the root. Ukraine is no longer just staring at muddy trenches, it is now looking straight at the spine of Russian logistics. By pushing the danger zone hundreds of kilometers behind the front, Kiev has shattered the illusion of a safe rear that Moscow spent years trying to build. Burning refineries and missile bases are not just damaged assets. They are proof that the old defense architecture is losing its grip. Safety is no longer assumed. And distance is no longer enough to shield the Kremlin. Putin's greatest danger today is not the loss of a few square kilometers of land. It is the fact that this war has entered people's wallets, their digital lives, and their sense of stability. Once battlefield reality is no longer stopped by geography, the Kremlin's contract of stability begins to crack. The war has found its way home. And once it reaches the doorstep, no censorship machine can fully hide the truth that the Russian system is fracturing from within. In your view, what will become Moscow's bigger breaking point in the months ahead? Drone firepower or the discontent building inside Russia itself? Leave your thoughts below and follow for more sharp analysis of the geopolitical shifts reshaping the world.